Cut the rope. The death-defying stunt that built the modern skyline. The day gravity lost. In 1854, a man stood high above a nervous crowd inside New York's Crystal Palace exhibition hall. Beneath his feet was a wooden platform suspended in the air by a single rope. Hundreds of spectators stared upward in uneasy silence. Then the man calmly gave an order that sounded almost suicidal. Cut the rope. An assistant swung an axe. The rope snapped. Women screamed. Men stepped backward in horror. For one terrifying moment, the platform dropped through the air. Then it stopped. The man standing calmly above the panicked crowd was Elisha Otis, a mechanic and inventor from Vermont. In that single dramatic moment, he did more than demonstrate a machine. He changed humanity's relationship with height itself. Before Otis, elevators were feared as death traps. After Otis, they became trusted enough to carry millions of people into the sky every day. And once people stopped fearing the fall, cities began to rise. Humanity's ancient dream of rising. Today, elevators feel almost invisible. We step into metal boxes without thinking. We stare at our phones, listen to soft music, and complain if the ride takes too long. But for most of human history, rising vertically was dangerous, exhausting, and deeply unnatural. Humans had dreamed about conquering height for thousands of years. Ancient Romans used primitive lifting systems in the Colosseum to raise gladiators and wild animals from underground chambers. Greek inventor Archimedes reportedly designed an early elevator-like device as far back as 236 BC. But these early machines were crude. They relied on ropes, pulleys, animal power, and human muscle. They lifted cargo more often than people, and accidents were common. A frayed rope or cracked beam could send a platform crashing downward without warning. For centuries, height itself remained a kind of natural limit. Even Europe's royal families treated elevators as strange luxuries rather than serious transportation. In 1743, King Louis XV of France installed a flying chair inside the Palace of Versailles so his mistress could secretly visit his private rooms. It was less a practical invention than a royal curiosity. The industrial age and the fear of falling. The real demand for elevators arrived during the Industrial Revolution. Factories expanded upward. Warehouses grew larger. Cities became crowded with workers and machinery. Suddenly, industries needed ways to move heavy goods quickly between floors. Steam-powered hoists appeared in mines and textile mills across Europe and America. But these early elevators terrified people. In fact, before Otis, they were not usually called elevators at all. They were known as hoists or lifting apparatuses, machines designed for cargo, not human beings. Most used thick hemp ropes that wore out over time and could snap without warning. Workers sometimes plunged to their deaths inside collapsing hoists. Cargo smashed into pieces on factory floors. Newspapers occasionally reported horrifying plummeting platform accidents in industrial districts. Yet society largely accepted these disasters. In the early 1800s, worker safety was rarely treated as a public concern. Elevator accidents were considered unfortunate, but ordinary, like boiler explosions or mine collapses. These machines were tools for factories, coal mines, and warehouses, not families, tourists, or office workers. People trusted stairs far more than ropes. In fact, very few ordinary citizens were willing to ride lifting machines at all. Height still belonged to church towers, ladders, and dangerous scaffolding. Most cities remained relatively short, because humans simply did not trust vertical travel. That was the world Elisha Otis inherited. The mechanic who invented trust. Otis was not born wealthy or famous. He worked many jobs throughout his difficult life: wagon driver, mill builder, mechanic, and factory worker. He experienced financial struggles, personal failures, and tragedy after the death of his first wife. But Otis possessed the practical imagination of a mechanic. He noticed problems others accepted as normal and searched for ways to solve them. In 1852, while working at a bedstead factory in Yonkers, New York, Otis encountered a familiar industrial problem. The factory needed a lifting platform to move heavy equipment upstairs safely, but everyone feared what might happen if the rope failed. Otis designed a brilliant solution. His invention used spring-loaded safety brakes attached to the platform itself. As long as the rope remained tight, the springs stayed compressed. But if the rope snapped, the springs instantly expanded outward into ratchet-like teeth built into the guide rails, locking the platform in place before it could crash. The rails resembled giant vertical saws gripping the elevator from both sides. The idea was simple. The effect was revolutionary. For the first time, a lifting machine could fail safely. Otis himself called the device an improvement in hoisting apparatus, but the public gave it a more powerful name, the safety elevator. That name mattered. Otis did not merely invent a brake, he invented trust. The stunt that changed the world. But there was a problem. Nobody believed him. Otis sold only a few machines after creating the design. People still feared stepping onto suspended platforms. So Otis realized he needed more than engineering. He needed theater. That realization led to the famous Crystal Palace demonstration in 1854. Standing high above the crowd, Otis ordered the rope cut with an axe. When the platform dropped to only a few inches before stopping safely, the audience erupted in shock and applause. It was one of the greatest publicity stunts in industrial history. More importantly, it changed public psychology. The elevator transformed overnight from a terrifying industrial machine into a symbol of modern safety and progress. 3 years later, Otis installed the world's first passenger safety elevator in a New York department store. Customers nervously stepped aboard, then they stepped aboard again. Slowly, humanity began learning to trust height. The penthouse revolution. That trust reshaped civilization. Before elevators became practical, the upper floors of buildings were considered undesirable. Climbing several flights of stairs every day was exhausting, especially during summer heat or winter cold. Wealthy families preferred lower floors close to the street, while servants and poorer residents often lived in cramped attic rooms near the roof. Otis's invention quietly reversed centuries of social order. Once elevators removed the physical burden of climbing stairs, height became desirable. Upper floors suddenly offered sunlight, cleaner air, quieter rooms, and spectacular views. The penthouse was born. Rent prices began rising with altitude. The higher you lived, the richer you appeared. An invention originally designed for factory machinery had transformed social status itself. The twin births of the skyscraper. Soon, architecture changed as well. Before elevators, buildings rarely rose beyond 5 or 6 stories. Because few people wanted to climb higher, cities spread outward instead of upward. But once safe elevators became common, architects no longer designed buildings around human legs. They designed them around vertical movement. At almost the same moment, steel frame construction was revolutionizing architecture. Historians often call the steel frame and the safety elevator the twin births of the skyscraper. One provided the bones, the other provided the veins. Steel allowed buildings to rise higher. Elevators allowed people to survive and function inside them. Without elevators, skyscrapers would have been little more than giant staircases. Cities like Chicago and New York began racing toward the clouds in the late 1800s. Towers climbed higher every decade. Office workers traveled upward each morning like modern pilgrims ascending mechanical mountains. The skyline itself became a monument to trust in machines. The strange new social space. Yet elevators changed more than architecture. They changed human behavior. For the first time in history, strangers from different social classes were forced into intimate silence inside tiny moving rooms. Businessmen, tourists, servants, millionaires, and delivery workers stood shoulder to shoulder, staring awkwardly ahead while invisible machinery carried them through buildings. Early elevators even required human operators, often dressed in uniforms like hotel staff. These operators controlled speed manually and reassured nervous passengers during the ride. Elevator etiquette slowly developed: where to stand, when to speak, how long to make eye contact. Even elevator music has psychological roots. In the early 20th century, soft background music, later called muzak, was introduced partly to calm passengers' lingering anxiety, about riding inside moving metal boxes. The gentle music softened silence and reduced tension in enclosed spaces. That anxiety may sound strange today, but in many ways it never completely disappeared. Every elevator ride still requires an act of faith. We willingly surrender control to cables, brakes, motors, and hidden engineering systems we barely understand. We trust that invisible mechanisms will protect us from gravity, and remarkably, they almost always do. The next height. Elisha Otis did not live long enough to fully witness the world he helped create. He died of diphtheria in 1861 at only 49 years old, just as the vertical age was beginning. But his invention continued climbing upward long after his death. Today, elevators travel at astonishing speeds through towers, taller than entire medieval cities. Some elevators move sideways. Others use artificial intelligence to predict traffic patterns inside buildings. Modern life depends on millions of silent ascents and descents every single day. And yet humanity is still confronting the same question Otis faced in 1854. How do we rise higher without falling? Engineers now dream about building a space elevator, a cable stretching from Earth into orbit that could carry humans toward the stars. But even modern steel remains too heavy for such impossible distances. Scientists search for stronger materials like carbon nanotubes, hoping to solve the same ancient problem in a new century. In some ways, the world is still waiting for the next Elisha Otis, the man who defeated gravity's reputation. History often celebrates inventors for changing machines, but the rarest inventors change human psychology. The airplane conquered the fear of flight. Vaccines conquered the fear of disease. Spacecraft conquered the fear of leaving Earth itself. Elisha Otis conquered the fear of heights. And because one man dared to stand above a terrified crowd and trust his invention more than gravity itself, modern civilization found the courage to build toward the sky.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Defying. Definition: refusing to obey or accept something, especially a rule, danger, or limit. Example: the climber was defying strong winds as he climbed the mountain. 2. Stunt. Definition: a dangerous or unusual action done to impress people. Example: the motorcycle stunt amazed the crowd at the show. 3. Gladiator. Definition: a fighter in ancient Rome who battled people or animals for public entertainment. Example: the gladiator fought bravely in front of thousands of people. 4. Crude. Definition: simple, rough, and not made carefully or skillfully. Example: early machines were crude and often broke down. 5. Pulley. Definition: a wheel with a rope used to lift or move heavy things. Example: workers used a pulley to lift the heavy box. 6. Frayed. Definition: worn out or damaged at the edges because of long use. Example: the old rope was frayed and unsafe to use. 7. Hoist. Definition: a machine or tool used to lift heavy objects. Example: the factory used a hoist to move large equipment upstairs. 8. Textile mill. Definition: a factory where cloth and fabric are made. Example: many people worked long hours in the textile mill. 9. Apparatus. Definition: a machine or set of tools used for a special purpose. Example: the laboratory apparatus helped scientists perform experiments. 10. Plummeting. Definition: falling very quickly and suddenly. Example: the broken elevator came plummeting toward the ground. 11. Scaffolding. Definition: a temporary structure used by workers while building or repairing something tall. Example: the workers stood on scaffolding to paint the building. 12. Bedstead. Definition: the frame or structure that supports a bed. Example: the wooden bedstead was heavy and strong. 13. Ratchet. Definition: a tool or device that allows movement in one direction but stops movement backward. Example: the ratchet kept the wheel from turning the wrong way. 14. Cramped. Definition: very small and uncomfortable because there is not enough space. Example: the family lived in a cramped apartment in the city. 15. Lingering. Definition: lasting longer than expected or staying for a long time. Example, she still felt a lingering fear after the accident.
Comprehension questions. 1. Who was Elisha Otis? Answer: Elisha Otis was an American mechanic and inventor. Who created the safety elevator? 2. What happened at the Crystal Palace exhibition in 1854? Answer: Otis stood on a platform high above the crowd and ordered a worker to cut the rope holding it. The platform dropped a little but stopped safely because of his invention. 3. Why were early elevators considered dangerous? Answer: early elevators used ropes that could snap suddenly, causing the platform to fall. 4. What was the main purpose of early hoists and lifts? Answer: they were mainly used to move heavy goods and machinery in factories and mines. 5. How did Otis's safety system work? Answer: if the rope broke, spring-loaded brakes locked into the guide rails and stopped the platform from falling. 6. Why was Otis's public demonstration important? Answer: it helped people trust elevators and showed that they could be safe. 7. What did people call elevators before Otis's invention became famous? Answer: they were usually called hoists or lifting apparatuses. 8. How did elevators change cities? Answer: elevators allowed buildings to grow taller, leading to the rise of skyscrapers. 9. What are the twin berths of the skyscraper mentioned in the article? Answer: the steel frame and the safety elevator are called the twin berths of the skyscraper. 10. Why were upper floors unpopular before elevators? Answer: people disliked climbing many stairs, so upper floors were tiring and uncomfortable. 11. How did elevators change social class and housing? Answer: after elevators became common, upper floors became more valuable, and wealthy people began living in penthouses. 12. Why did early elevators need operators? Answer: operators controlled the elevator manually and helped calm nervous passengers. 13. What was the purpose of elevator music? Answer: elevator music was used to reduce stress and make passengers feel more relaxed. 14. How did Elisha Otis die? Answer: he died of diphtheria in 1861 at the age of 49. 15. What is a modern example of humanity trying to rise higher without falling? Answer: scientists are trying to create a space elevator that could carry people into space safely.